then let's begin with a word of prayer. Father, Satan tests us, tempts us in many ways. But the worst part is that he tempts us to not have faith in him. Keep us always in that faith as Jesus was kept in that faith. Trust in you that your will be done and that we will be saved by your grace. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, let's see what we have. Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John.
I got Mark here.
You got Mark? Got John.
Okay, I'll take one.
You take
I'll
one.
grab about Matthew.
Take Matthew, okay? It's now about 10 o'clock in the morning, Friday, April 7th, 30 AD. And the place is Golgotha. Once the crossbeam was in place, a different kind of pain began for those who had been crucified. Gravity pulled the body downward, which put pressure on the nerves of the wrist and resulted in shooting pain. But when the condemned tried to relieve that pain by pushing himself upward, the pressure on the nerves of the feet also resulted in shooting pain. The Romans knew what they were doing. Okay? Question, thought, or comment? Sad, yeah.
No, and there was also the deal with being able to breathe. That was difficult.
That will come as the lungs start filling up. Yeah, we'll come to that. Okay, but this is just the up and down effect here. All right, Mark 15, 29, and 30 reads, those passing by were hurling abuse. Oh, you're Mark? Go for it.
Yes.
Thank you.
And those who passed by derided him, wagging their beards and saying, "Aha! You who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself and come down from the cross."
Okay,
So,
that's what I'm saying.
oh, good.
It's fine. All right, what does it tell us? Jesus on the cross and two robbers, criminals with him. What's happening?
There's no empathy of any kind. It's just, oh yeah, you're getting what you deserve.
Which is kind of odd for Jews, to have a Jews being crucified by Romans and letting it go as it's no big deal, right?
Well, so it would appear at this point.
That's what it would appear, okay? At least these certain persons.
Yeah.
And casting up to him, things that he had said and making it sound terrible.
Right, throwing back into his mouth, at him, the words he'd used, okay? Destroy the temple and build it in 3 days.
The thing is, when I look at this, how many times have you known someone who says things that are inaccurate continually, intentionally, and there is no punishment or anything like that? They're just a loudmouth that doesn't know what they're doing. And yet, in this case, because it was making jealousy among the leaders of the church, these were grievous sins. And
Yes,
we've all known a lot of people probably that were that way. They'll say anything that they think,
Pops into their mind.
Yeah.
But it's more specific with the writer. The writer specifically wants this information to you, okay? That they didn't believe what he said about the temple. But if you remember back when he said it, it said he was referring to his body, okay? They didn't hear that part. They heard this to destroy the temple, meaning the 46 years of a building project that had been going on, okay?
And then, the whole thing, and the title here is Satan Tempts Jesus, but it goes right back to that, and it doesn't say if you, but it's like, okay, you said this, so save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross.
Well, we don't know anything about that yet. We're about to, so let's go on. Matthew 27, 39 to 40a reads.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
And we're going to 48. Okay. those who passed by derided him, shaking their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself."
Okay, so that sounds like the same thing. Wagging the beard back and forth. So it's oh no.
But the save yourself thing, then, oh, clearly you're not the Son of God.
Clearly not.
Yeah.
Obviously, you wouldn't be on a cross.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Here we go now. Mark 15, 31 to 32a.
So also the chief priests with the scribes mocked him to one another, saying, "He saved others, he cannot save himself." 32a. Let the Christ, the King of Israel, come down from the cross that we may see and believe.
Okay, what is Mark telling us?
Well, you can kind of see how they felt that way. He had done all that. I mean, even if they were jerks, they could wonder why he couldn't do that.
Okay, these are the religious leaders now. Okay? They were saying the same kind of thing. Now they've added things that they're saying, though.
But they also had asked him to show them signs, and he wouldn't do it.
No,
So why would he do it now?
because he's suffering, and maybe that would
Yeah.
be a great thing to do.
Except we know the rest of the story.
We already know the rest of the story. That's not fair. Okay, here they're looking back at who were the others that he had saved. Name a couple of them, or at least one.
Lazarus.
Lazarus, right. Saved him. Why didn't he save himself? Come on, get down from the cross.
And you could also argue that the blind man was saved and the
Yeah.
leper was saved.
Yeah, that's why I said name at least only one.
Yeah.
There are many of them, okay? Paralytic, yeah. So, he saved others, plural. He cannot save himself. They simply don't believe he can do anything about it. Somehow he managed to work those miracles, but not for himself, okay? Let this Christ, would have had been the phrase Messiah, King of Israel, come down from the cross. Why? What did they want?
Well, they still want the political
Yes,
leader.
yes, but they wanted to see.
See it.
Oh, yeah.
No faith, no trust. I want to see it. That's the same thing we run into constantly.
Yeah.
Okay? It's the normal human condition. Christians are no different.
Well, if you're building an airplane, you have to do that. Right? Trust but verify.
You verify, yes. I want to make sure the pilot, okay, yeah, the plane has gone through safety features, et cetera, et cetera. They said, we will believe only if we see it. Now, what did Jesus say about people who didn't see and yet believed?
They're blessed.
They're blessed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Those who are seeing, it's not a matter of belief anymore.
Well, and
Not a matter of
besides which,
faith.
there was all of this stuff they could have seen, or they did see, and
Yeah.
they still didn't believe. So,
No.
I mean, it's
Well,
a...
we probably think the same thing if we didn't have our faith.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
He didn't see, why didn't he?
The
But we
Roman
have our
Church,
faith
the
and
Roman
all
Church
that.
for 1,500 plus years
Yeah, we know why.
tried to prove that Jesus had done on the throne and said, you weren't expected to believe, you expected to see.
They didn't have faith like we do.
So I think we're on the right track when we keep looking to have faith.
Absolutely.
Matthew 27, 41 to 42. I think I have Matthew.
I go on Matthew.
Okay, you do? Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. In the same way, chief priests also, along with the scribes and elders, were mocking him, saying, "He saved others, he cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down from the cross, and we will believe in him."
So Matthew is saying the same thing Mark said. Okay? No big deal.
Well, what that tells me is it's probably very accurate because you have multiple authors giving you the same words. Now, I know they copied from another source as
Yeah,
well.
they did copy, but still, it was something they both felt should be said
Yes.
in a certain way, and it is. So I can assume that the general thing is they didn't, the religious leaders abused it. They didn't believe, Nothing. They tempted and taunted him.
Mocked him.
Mocked him. There you go.
Mhm.
All right. The representatives of the Sanhedrin arrived to be certain Jesus had been crucified. They were overheard saying to each other, "He claimed to be the Messiah, the Son of God. But since he suffers this way, he must have been the son of Satan." Would any thought come to you?
Well, I mean, Jesus already had made the statement, you know, a house divided against itself cannot stand.
True.
And this is another example of that assumption.
Okay. Could the Messiah suffer like this? In the Jewish tradition, is this something that they could expect to have happen? The good suffer?
Depends on whether or not you read the prophecies.
Well, they
And-
would
and-
be
and-
well versed.
And, right, but they need to connect that prophecy to this person, and
Okay.
that they no doubt had not done.
Okay?
Well, and then, I don't remember where it is, but in the Old Testament, says anyone who hangs on a tree or
Tree.
stake
Right.
is cursed.
Yes.
So this was a very visible sign that this man who made all of these fabulous claims, which they didn't believe anyway, is cursed.
Right.
You know, he can't be.
Can't be from God. Can't be. So, from their perspective, it makes perfect sense. Okay? Don't hold them guilty about this. From what they were taught, this is what they believe, and it makes perfect sense. Okay? God is not going to make his own people suffer. He would allow suffering as he did with Job, but in the end, of course, he would give it all back.
Well, and then any suffering, you know, was also a judgment.
Yes.
Because, you know, it's when they became unfaithful and all of this that God, you know, whomped them with the
Right?
Babylonians,
Or
the
their
Syrians, and everybody.
parents were bad, so they were blind from birth. That kind of thing. So it's just a way of thinking, and we're not part of that thinking anymore. All right. Shaking their heads side to side, as folks had done for centuries, Lamentation 2:15, they said to Jesus, "You who would rebuild the temple in 3 days, come down and save yourself, if you are the Son of God." And that's the phrase we're after. Okay? So they're questioning him, they're asking him to prove to them that he's the Son of God.
But you can also look throughout the scriptures, time and time again. Man misunderstands God,
Yes,
always.
always.
And here we are again. I can't help but to think you and I misunderstand God in some way that we don't recognize.
Yes, I agree with you. It's a healthy way of thinking about it. And the church doesn't want to do that. They want to say that they have all the facts and they have it right and 100% way of doing things. But there should be a good smattering of doubt among everything.
Or humility.
Humility at the best. Yes,
Yeah.
You're right. Okay, excuse me. The phrase, "if you are the Son of God," is the key here. Luke 4:13. Thank you. When the devil had finished every temptation, he left him until the opportune time. This is way back at after his baptism. He was out in the wilderness with the temptation. When is that opportune time? Now. Now, in reality, the representatives of the Sanhedrin were themselves acting as the mouthpiece of Satan. Once again, Satan was tempting Jesus to doubt God, as he had at the very beginning of the ministry. The same question that was asked after his baptism was put to Jesus again. Prove to everyone that you are the Messiah by coming down from the cross. But Jesus was determined to live by faith, not by sight. That's hard. Thoughts?
Well, and then there was the added aspect that Jesus knew that this act was necessary. This was for the salvation and the redemption of the world. And it wasn't just a now thing, being that political
Uh-huh.
Messiah. There was way more at stake, so he had to go through it. But gosh, I think about that, it's hard when people make those kinds of comments to a person. You want to defend yourself
Slap them upside the head.
and well, yeah, see, I can't, yeah, it's a real temptation.
But you see that not just with Jesus, but anytime,
Yeah.
when someone suffers because of other people's deriding them,
Yes,
it's really the same thing.
yes. All right. So Satan stopped tempting him and is now back tempting him. And finally, at the last moment, really a push to get Jesus to give up his faith and give up questioning, asking others to have faith, and instead to live by sight. Prove it. Any question, thought, or comment?
Well, I think he does prove it, just not in the way they expect.
Well, that's correct.
That's the rest of the story. We're
Yeah.
not there yet.
We're not there yet, you're right. Okay, Mark 15:32b.
Those who were crucified with him also reviled him.
Okay, notice anything?
Well, they were under the same condemnation. They were dying as well.
True.
Why would you insult the guy that's next to you dying?
That's a really good question. It'd be better to throw your insults at the Romans, I would think.
Yeah.
But there's something in here that you haven't seen. It's plural.
Oh, yeah, because we have another story of only one deriding.
Right.
Yeah.
But Mark is saying they derided him. So it could be that for some time, both of them got in on the action.
Yeah.
Okay? We don't normally think about that. We think that one did and one didn't.
Well, we also, because we have two versions of this,
Yes.
we don't know which one is specifically accurate.
They could well both be accurate.
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know. But remember, they're hanging there for 6 hours. All sorts of things can happen in that kind of time.
Yeah.
I always had the feeling that the one, the good one, saw how he handled things and something that he said or whatever, it got through to him before the end.
Well, let's see what happens here. Matthew 27:44.
The bandits who were crucified with him also taunted him in the same way.
Okay? They. So Matthew and Mark agree that it's plural. And that could have happened, when the Pharisees first get out there, or the Sanhedrin, and they start doing this thing, the other two could suddenly be part of that whole process. There's a reason why that makes sense, which we'll find out shortly. Luke 23:39-43 reads, one of the criminals who were hanged there was hurling abuse at him, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other answered and rebuked him, said, "Do you not even fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed are suffering justly, for we are receiving what we deserve for our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." And he was saying, "Jesus, remember me when you come in your kingdom." And he said to him, "Truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." All right, so they may have begun the process, both of them deriding Jesus or insulting him. But as you're suggesting, it could be that one of them was watching all this and it went to his heart and he was converted.
Well, and then when I see the words, when you come into your kingdom, that's an assumption of faith.
Yes, it is.
And where would these guys have gotten that? We have no way of knowing.
No way to know. But somehow they had, at least according
The
to
one
Luke.
guy.
Huh?
At least the one
Yeah,
person
the
did.
one.
Yeah, the one did.
Yeah.
So he may have been a little bit more astute politically. Who knows? Maybe he had heard Jesus talk. Who knows? I don't know. Okay? The key here being, well, we'll get to that in a moment. They are suffering justly. Now, all of a sudden, that's the thought process. What he said was, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus responds. That's important. Okay, here we go. Even one of the men who was being crucified at this time, had been mouthing the words of Satan. If you are the Messiah, save yourself and us, and we will fight for you. I add that, because that's what they expected of a Messiah. They expected a political Messiah to take and get rid of the Romans and give them a free country. So I assume that's what he meant. You know, don't just get me down, but get me down, and then I'll do something for you too. I'll fight for you. Making a bargain. Need to say none of us have ever tried that. Making a bargain with God, right? Thought or comment? But the other condemned man, despite what he saw, believed in Jesus and asked that Jesus remember him when Jesus began his reign in the kingdom. Any question or thought?
Well, I think it's, we always want a happy ending, and to see someone change their tone is a good thing to see.
Yeah, I agree. But it also shows that some things can happen at the last moment in your life. A person can change. A person can come to faith. We've seen that many times in our lifetime, and other people have come to faith, despite their background. Okay? So, at least one of them came to believe in Jesus and had faith. And Jesus' response was, promise that they would be together immediately. I put that word in there. That should trigger all sorts of things in your head. When is the kingdom of Christ coming? They're already there. Today you will be with me in paradise, correct?
That's what he said.
That's what he said. So once they died, he would have gone to paradise with Jesus. What's going to happen when you die?
When I die?
Yes.
Well, presumably we're going to be in heaven, in paradise,
Yep.
with God and with many others.
When?
Immediately.
Immediately.
Yeah, but I don't know when I'm going to die.
Won't matter.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay? For the believers, when we die, we immediately go to the presence of Christ. Into the presence of the Father. Okay? That's what he tells us, and that's what you have to have faith in.
Yeah. That's the one that gets me about the old, the Roman Catholic assumption of purgatory.
Purgatory. Thank you.
And it's not biblically supported, of course.
Of course not. You have to really stretch it to come to it. If you just take this phrase, you don't have a purgatory. You're going immediately to paradise to be with Christ. And that's going to be important when we die. Okay? Have faith in it. Believe it. Jesus said it when he was on the cross.
One could also argue, though, that you don't have to wait till you die, and that you can live in belief here.
Absolutely. In fact, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's how I respond to the gift that God has given me. When God said, today you'll be with me in paradise when you die, get salvation, my life changes. I now respond in thanks. I'm not required to. It's not a condition of my going to heaven, but it's my response. Anything else? Luke 23, 36 to 37. The soldiers also mocked him, coming up to him, offering him sour wine and saying, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." Hey, get the soldiers get in on the action. That comes as no surprise either. Okay, but they did offer him some wine, some of this stuff. Matthew 27, 40b.
Okay, 40b. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross.
That's right. Same thing. It's Satan
Yeah.
tempting him. Luke 23, 35. That's a little bit out of order on purpose. And the people stood by, looking on. This is a public display, folks. Okay? It's meant to attract the crowds. And even the rulers were sneering at him, saying, "He saved others, let him save himself, if this is the Messiah of God, his chosen one." Everybody is just riding him.
Once again, all based on the idea that the Messiah would be a military leader
right.
and take over the world.
That's exactly correct. And Matthew 27, 43 reads, "He trusts in God. Let God rescue him now, if he delights in him. For he said, I am the Son of God." Well, they're really after him. They really are mouthing the words of Satan.
Well, and if you think about it, they're even tempting the Father.
Go ahead.
You know, well, and Jesus, I think, said to Satan, you know, don't put God, you shall not tempt the Lord your God.
Right.
But they're saying, okay, God, you know, if you really are his Father, well, help him out here.
Good point. A very good point. Why isn't God saving him? Why is God letting this happen?
Because it has to do, it has to happen.
Well, for our benefit.
Yeah.
Jesus once again offered wine, but refused. The wine is to give a little deadening to the pain a little bit. That's about all it is. Others were overheard saying, "You saved Lazarus, now save yourself. And if you are the king of the Jews, then save yourself." And he said he was God's son. Let's see if God will rescue him. Yep, they're going right after God the Father.
You can see why they thought that. I mean,
Huh?
you can see why they thought that.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It really does. Anything else? These kinds of comments were overheard by some of the women who had followed Jesus and who were gathered not far from the cross. Remember, it's a public event. One of the women was Mary, his mother, and another was Mary Magdalene. Now, that's familiar, right? And we all knew that, right? That's not the end of it, though. Any question or thought? Mary was a common name. Very common.
Too common.
Well, we also know Jesus was a common name.
Jesus, yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Yeshua, Joshua. Okay? So, here we go. They overheard these comments. That's how we have a record of them. John 19, 25 through 27.
Therefore the soldiers did these things, but there were standing by the cross of Jesus his mother and his mother's sister Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus therefore saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, he said to his mother, "Woman, behold your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Behold your mother." And from that hour the disciple took her into his own house.
Okay. Now, how many Marys were there?
At least 3.
At least 3. Which is an important number. We've got to keep these Marys somehow separate. Apparently, Mary the mother of Jesus had a sister named Mary.
That's crazy.
That's nuts. Whose husband was Clopas, which we'll get into later. And then there was Mary Magdalene, Mary from Magdala. Okay? So, now we have all three of them there with John as a source.
So we don't have Mary as in Mary and Martha. So I mean, that's
Nope, that
four
Mary's not
Marys
there.
that we talk about, but
That's
she
the fourth
wasn't.
one, yeah.
Well, we don't know that she's there. We don't know.
We don't know if she's there or not.
Yeah.
We just know that these three are there. And they just happen to all be Marys. All right. What else does this bring to you?
Well, so Jesus saying, you know, behold your son, behold your mother. Take care of each other.
Yeah,
That's what I'm hearing.
good. I agree with you.
And the assumption would be that the mother needed taken care of, but really that can go both ways.
Would you explain that other part of it? I
Well,
agree with all
sure.
the first part.
So
Explain
have you ever been encouraged by your mother, or has she ever given you words that makes you feel that you needed? You know, hey,
Uh-huh.
you know, you're overreacting. That's not, you know.
that. Oh yeah, good motherly. Yeah.
But we always we learn from our mothers,
Good point.
just like we learn from our fathers.
Good point. Good point. And Mary, the mother of Jesus, she needed to be protected. Women always had to have a male person. That's it. Okay.
And these people were relatively young, probably.
Yes, relatively young
Yeah.
and relatively old, depending how you look at it.
Something I had never thought about before, though. I mean, yes, we see, and we assume this is John because everyone seems to think that's the one that Jesus loved. But, I mean, Jesus did have, or Mary had other sons,
Yes, she did.
you know, and presumably they
Daughters.
would only be, you know, probably not more than 10 years younger than Jesus, probably, you know,
Uh-huh.
only a couple years younger than
Correct.
Jesus. So, well, maybe because John was one of the, here we go, it's falling into place.
You got it.
John was his brother in the faith.
In the faith, correct.
And his physical half-brothers were not yet.
No, they were not. That's
Not
correct.
yet.
You got it. Very good.
Okay.
Jesus' brothers and sisters were not followers. Okay? That comes later. Okay? And John was the most prominent person close to Jesus. And he was there at the cross, apparently. Okay? The others were not. Maybe. We don't know. But Jesus in this move assures that his mother is cared for by someone who is of the faith.
This is our
Our new family.
faith family,
Yes.
is our true family.
Yes. Very good. All right. Anything else? As Jesus watched, he realized that even looking at his mother was the temptation of Satan. Why should she suffer so? I could call on the Father, thought Jesus, and come down from the cross so she will know that I am the Messiah and I won't have to suffer anymore. Mothers have this thing about, I believe, I'm not one, but I've heard that mothers suffer when their children suffer.
No question.
Maybe.
With a wee bit of frustration not being able to help them sometimes.
Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. She's suffering. And he can eliminate that. He can alleviate that. All he has to do is come down. And he knows he can.
But he also knows on the third.
He's keeping his faith in the Father. And that's more important than this initial thought. But still, it's Satan's way of testing and tempting. Come on down, if you are the Christ, the Son of God, if you are the Messiah. Anything else? Instead, he saw that John was quietly standing with the women. Jesus wanted to be sure that his mother was cared for by someone who was a disciple. So he looked his mother in the eye, nodded toward John, then looked John in the eye and nodded toward his mother. Managed to take a breath and said, "Behold your son, your mother." Thus Jesus established her adoption by John. Remember, breathing is hard at this time. You're not going to get all sorts of flowery phrases, okay? But by looking him right in the eye and saying the minimum words, he made sure she was cared for by someone who was a believer. Question, thought, or comment? And next time when we get together, there will be darkness and death.